forward, Katrina was not direct judgment by God on that city, but rather more of a natural consequence of a world that has fallen, a world that has disaster. It's a perfect catastrophe that encapsulates the second law of thermodynamics. Everything going from order, that is a city that is thriving and vibrant, to disorder, a city that through the failure of levees and through the incredible power of the storm underwent severe flooding. So it's a natural consequence of sin, but not God's direct judgment in the same fashion as he was fixing to have against Nineveh in the case of Jonah, or Sodom and Gomorrah, or Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea. And so for us, when those things do happen, we respond not with, well, how could you be better people so you can avoid the judgment of God, but rather John 16:33 that we heard about earlier in class today. In this world you will have tribulation, or in this world you will have suffering, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And then even elsewhere in Hebrews, where it talks about having a great high priest who is able to sympathize with us in our weakness. And not just weakness in terms of like, I wish I could bench press a little bit more, but weakness in terms of being tempted, weakness in terms of experiencing the effects of sin and death and the power of the devil. And so for us then, we bring it back not to God's judgment, but back to God's grace and enduring of the cross, if you will. And that's true whether it's a disaster on a grand scale, like in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina, or whether that's disaster on a very micro scale, in terms of even your own life in a situation that only you know what you're struggling with, or a family member, the loss of a loved one. The end result is still the same. You always go back to the cross. Good question, though. Anything else with that?
So, we see God's grace in the cross, and we see suffering there in the cross, but it's God's will that Jesus goes to the cross. So sometimes I think it's hard for us to say, well, this isn't God's will, because even a sparrow falls to the ground. God's aware of that. So, I mean, the storms that come in life, God is aware of what's going to take place. So, I would just say it's in the mind of God. I don't know why these things happen sometimes, but God will be God.
Yes, and that's where, again, we trust to not with what we think God is trying to do, but rather look to what he already has done. And the perfect revelation of what he already has done, what he promises, and where he promises to be is in the cross, in the Word, and in the means of grace. And so that's where we point back to and root our discussion in those situations, rather than speculating on direct judgment of God, especially in the New Covenant.
Well, if you go that way, then what do you say about the poor children that were just killed at the camp and Texas and stuff? That wasn't a judgment of God.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's my point, is that we don't want to do that.
Right.
But rather we can see the way in which God is working through that tragedy in terms of hope, life, and comfort. In terms of, especially in the case of those kids, it's a Christian camp, and as far as I know, everybody there professed Christ. And so no matter how long or how short our race is that we won with endurance, at the end of it we do receive the crown of life. And so for us, you saw some people, not even from necessarily a Christian perspective, but just say, well, this is what they get for putting the camp too close to the lake and doing this or doing that. And well, no, the thing is, disasters happen. And God allows us, one, to learn from them, to prevent them in the future as best as we can, but also, two, we recognize that they have run their race, they have received their reward, and now they are resting in the arms of their Savior. Back here and then over here.
I had spent my whole entire working career as a nurse, and worked the greatest majority of it in an emergency room, a level 1 trauma center, and for the number of times, I actually worked at the hospital that had the most Columbine victims. And as a nurse case manager, I don't know how many times I was, faced every single day with somebody saying, why does this happen? How does this happen? And, I truly believe it is God's grace that we have to focus. God didn't make this happen. And I know that I did spend a lot of my career trying to say that to people. This is not God passing judgment on you. So I think that's the biggest part we have to remember with any kind of tragedy, whether it's a simple accident victim or maybe a child that was backed over by their parent in a parking lot. It's not a judgment on them per se.
People are so egotistical that they can figure out the reasons for things.
And I'll talk about that in the sermon today. It's almost as if you were in my Yes.
And Pastor, isn't it sometimes that we've learned how to please the Lord by stewardship? In other words, considering everything that we have in some ways, like our food and our home and everything, as a gift, then things like the California fires and stuff like that, I think sometimes that he could make it better, but whoever's running the show down there hasn't learned, and so bad stewardship would be a way of sort of, kicking God to the curb and saying, well, I know better than you, and I don't have to do this or that. And so it's kind of disrespectful, and so God doesn't make it happen. He just says, okie dokie, you can have it your way. Bad stewardship.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think just to kind of wrap this discussion up, we just remember St. Paul's words. Consider it pure joy when you face and endure trials. And you can think to yourself, well, of course, you're St. Paul. It's easy for you to say that, but then let's remember his story. Does St. Paul have a nice end to his life where, he dies in his sleep on the beach, drink in hand, smile on his face?
No.
No, he's killed in Rome during the reign of Nero. And we think about all the apostles who consider it joy to endure suffering for the sake of the cross. Aside from John, who dies, mind you, dies in prison in 95 AD on the island of Patmos. So again, it's not even like the prisons we have now. Like Roman prison in exile in 95 AD is not a place you want to be. But again, that's where we set our eyes on, and what our hope is, not just is in the temporal and everything going well and perfectly now, but in the resurrection of the dead, the new creation, and the complete and utter destruction of sin, death, and the power of the devil. So we got two videos. This first one kind of I shared with the kids. I think I've shared this one before, but it's, I think, a great visualization and reminder of the work of God, especially in Hebrews 11 and 12, showing the restoration and rescue from sin, death, and the power of the devil that God has, even for those who are anticipating the reward, who, with all of us who die in faith and or maybe even alive when Christ returns, see the fullness of the hope of the resurrection of the dead, the life of the world to come. And then I have just a short 3-minute video with some pictures and different things from each day of the gathering. And then I'll turn it over for the last part of class to talk about even more fun, group. Oh, maybe if we get these front tank lights. So, yeah, the endurance of Christ on the cross transcends all of time and space and rescues us from sin, death, and the power of the devil. With that in mind, I got one last video recap here of our combined group from Zion here in Nampa and Atonement in Seattle with Banner of Zion.
Pastor, how many kids were there?
20,000 plus participants. This is from our district event that we had at the aquarium. That's the about the mouth of Mississippi right here. It's the speaker of the Lutheran Hour presenting. Sebastian broke the barrier of who first tried alligator, so.
Did he like it?
He did, yeah. That's your session. Are you mutated Protestant? The answer is no, you are not. It's from worship service. Divine Service 1 in San Antonio is where we are going to be at in 3 years. So, yeah, there's a bit of a video recap there of our time. Any questions about anything with regard to the New Orleans trip in particular? Yes?
You didn't mention that Westboro showed up.
Well, the thing is, our group didn't actually physically see and interact there. Coincidentally, that was the day we decided to go to that Cafe du Monde and get some
Beignets.
coffee. Yeah, so you might have heard it on the news, well, probably not here, but maybe in like the Lutheran News Network. But yes, we had Westboro Baptist. If you're not familiar with who they are a hate organization designated both by the government and myself, who are protesting the LCMS for being too, I don't even know.
Judgmental.
Not strong enough in our faith and convictions. So they protested outside of the convention hall, which is where most of the daily activities were happening. That being said, there's a tremendous group of young adult and adult leaders who basically formed a wall of protection. The police were there. President Harrison went and talked to them for a little while. I don't think it went anywhere. But yeah, we actually missed out on seeing them in person because we had already decided that day was going to be our day to go get some coffee, get some beignets, go see a little bit of the market in the French Quarter early in the day because it was only 80 degrees with 90% humidity instead of at 3 in the afternoon when it would be 95 degrees and 90% humidity. So, but yeah, Westboro Baptist was there, but our group, we missed out on the fun. And it was a pretty small, it wasn't like a huge group of them either. I think there was just a few there. But yeah, the police handled it well. Our leadership from the LCMS were there, trying to talk with them, dialogue with them, and
That's troublesome.
well, let me put it this way. I feel like if you are an organization that Westboro Baptist in particular is protesting, you are doing something right.
You're doing something right.
So-
Well, obviously, you're not the member of Westboro Baptist.
The best thing I heard was there was a congregation that started singing Jesus Loves Me back to them.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's like the best comeback you could ever have to them.
Oh, that's great.
All right, good morning, everybody. Been a while since you've probably seen me at that Bible study. I'm working at night, so it's sometimes hard to get up and make it. So I apologize. Hopefully my schedule will change soon. Most everybody should have got an email with the same handout, and there was actually a couple formatting issues that I noticed after it was emailed that I fixed, but didn't get fixed for some reason. But pretty much, we need a new roof. So people that have been members here probably know that
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
a long time we've been needing a new roof.
The original sanctuary roof, 1947, I believe.
Oh.
And it's we call it slate, but it's actually a cement fiber roof. And then the breezeway and carport, what did I put, what is it called? What's it called?
Granulized roll material.
Granulated roll material. And to my knowledge, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, those were still the original roofs, and I think those were built in either the mid to late 70s or early 80s. Does anybody know
I think so.
anything different than that? So they've definitely borne out theirs. So we started talking about this. I've been on either the vice president or the president for almost 10 years now. We've been talking about it the whole time.
Yeah.
So
So it's time.
Paul did a good job of kind of getting the ball rolling. So we tried to do an insurance claim. Problem being is we changed insurance carriers about 2.5, 3 years ago. So when we put an insurance claim, they said, well, great, it's damaged, but 78 years old, we've only been your insurance company for 2 years, so too bad. So the only nice thing about that is we did hire, well, we went into a contract with a person that's an independent, what's the word? Assessor, and they did an inspection, sent it to the insurance company, of course they denied it. And the insurance company sent their own engineer out and did another assessment. The two things that both sides agree on is the roofs need to be replaced on, but the insurance company is not gonna pay for it. So they said the next step with the person we hired, which was called Rook, yeah, Rook, yeah, I can't remember the second part of it, I'll have to look it up. That they want us to hire our own engineer and do another appeal to the ruling. And the ministry council just felt that, you know, that's $3,000 to $5,000 that we're just now spending a lot of money on it. So we got a bid, we got a few bids, but the one that we would like to use is Osmus Roofing. Been in the valley for years and years. There's been Osmuses that have been members here and in Grace over the years, so they're definitely a company that we trust. And we've decided the most cost-effective and best material to use for the sanctuary is just composite shingle. There were some other options, but the it's fairly cost prohibitive. So a composite shingle we're gonna get about 25 to 30 years out of. But the nice thing about composite shingle is we can go over it one more time. So you don't have to take all the old off, we can do another one. So this is basically a 30 to 50 year plan without a lot of cost. So I don't know, do you want to talk about the financing part of the cost?
Yeah, so we looked at doing the shingling on the roof and the carport at the same time, just roll it up in one package with Osmus. The quote we got back was, I believe, $80,000, which the original quote we got from Brooke was like 300,000.
Yeah.
So 80 was a whole lot better by comparison.
Oh, yeah.
And so we explored different financing options. The good news is, and this will sound a little bit contradictory to what the ministry council voted on, but Zion does have the savings that we could pay for this in cash and be done with it. An option. What we have voted to pursue is what's called a ministry improvement loan through the Lutheran Church Extension Fund. They're connected to the LCMS. They basically do very favorable interest loans to LCMS congregations. And when I called their Northwest District loan officer, Mike Madison, he actually mentioned this ministry improvement loan to us. I guess Grace did one recently for their HVAC system, but it's literally designed in such a way that the interest is very low, and it gives congregations time to fundraise while also not putting off some of these necessary maintenance. So the particulars of this loan, it's a 10-year term. We do not intend for it to take that long, but just table that for now. The first year of financing is a very low 4% interest rate, and it's interest only for the first year. It's also interest only for the second year, but bumps up to about 6.5%, which is still relatively low for a 10-year note. That's like a mortgage interest rate currently. And so I asked, I was like, well, why are we only paying interest for the first 2 years? Like, are you guys just making an annuity out of us? And he said, no, the idea behind that is it keeps your guys' cash requirements very low for 2 years and allows you to do fundraising to come up with this. There's no prepayment penalty. We can pay off whenever we want to, which the cash is there. We can pay it off tomorrow. But for the sake of cash management, we figured the better part of $80,000. I think what was officially voted on was that we would pay $30,000 now, take care of just about half of it, and finance up to $60,000, looking more at like 50. And the reason for that is just to have that cash on hand in case something else were to come up. It's better to have $50,000 in our pocket right now, rather than, I mean, we've all been there, we spend a huge chunk of our savings on something and then the car breaks down. So the idea with that is we can leave that cash there for a very relatively low cost of financing through those 2 years. And the goal would be to fundraise and pay it off in 2 years. There's also an option if, he mentioned this, our loan officer did, that if we were to come up with a sizable amount of money to put towards it, similar to how you would like recast your mortgage to get a lower monthly payment, we could throw a significant amount of money at our principal and it would re-amortize the loan over the rest of the 10 years and bring any kind of payment down. So those are very appealing options about that. The other thing that we're looking to do, I don't know if it's in here, Kathy and I are looking up the particulars of this for a 501c3. Everything we've read says that we can do this, we're just crossing our T's and dotting our I's before we do it. But is moving our current cash savings account that we have is in just a typical ICCU savings account. It makes maybe like 1/100% of interest every year, which is fine. But one of the options that we can do is move that. ICCU has what's called a high yield savings. I use one for our personal emergency fund. It acts just like a normal savings account. You put your money in, you can take it back out when you want to, but it generates, I think, with ICCU about 3.4% interest annually. So in that first year, that brings our effective interest rate down to like 6.6%.
Do it.
Which is really nothing, yeah.
That's great.
And then when this thing is paid off, then going into the future, Zion can make interest income every year that we can put towards cool things like youth gatherings and other deferred maintenance.
And just to kind of, just to
close it out here is, we can see the breezeway, we've had a lot of problems with that, it's starting to ruin the sheathing and get a lot of water damage. We wanna do the roof on the church before we have a major incident and have $200,000 worth of water damage.
Then it does become a $300,000 problem.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, we think action and spend a little money, take it on the loan and getting it done instead of continuing talking about it. So I'll open up for questions. Steve, go ahead.
Okay, what, just a consideration, is there a breakdown in the bid versus labor versus material?
Dave? He says no.
Well, pretty steep roof.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that's a cheap install, it's not like
No.
you're walking on it.
we could probably find out for you, I don't know.
Well,
That's-
what I was thinking is, like when I did my roof, they offered 50-year composite shingles versus 25. If the labor is extensive,
Yeah,
it might be worth to spend a little bit more on the shingles to delay
Yeah,
the
make it
next,
last
the
longer.
next,
Yeah.
we can definitely check into that,
that's what I would wonder about.
yeah. Go ahead, Lon.
Will the replacement affect any of our Sunday services or anything else going on?
Ooh, that is a good question. Maybe. We don't know. We'll find out and get back to you if we decide to go with the project.
Why did we switch insurance companies?
Why did we switch insurance companies? Yeah, it was, the premiums were considerably less, weren't they? And there was a couple of coverage things too. I can get you the details. Paul was kind of instrumental in that, but there was some problems with the coverages too, with the different liabilities and stuff.
Oh, I see.
With the school, with children and the daycare.
Oh, yeah.
So that was part of it, plus it was cheaper. So I can get you the details if you want, but there was a few reasons.
Yeah.
Richard?
Yeah, so I had Osman do my roof a couple of years ago. I know they've been in the valley for a long time, so like.
You happy with them?
Yeah, we haven't had any issues with it. We just put on a 25-year. They tore off the old roof and put on a 25-year shingle.
Okay.
Which that was originally on the house, and we got like 28 years out of the first one, but it was just getting shiny on us, so
Yeah.
we went ahead and replaced it. But yeah, they're fast. I mean, those guys, man, they work hard. They had that thing done in about 3 days.
Wow. Yes, ma'am.
So you said the first 2 years you're only required to pay the interest, but I'm assuming that from what you said, that ministry council would decide for you to whether to throw some money towards the principal.
We might